enough campaign. Just a few days ago, this campaign didn't exist. And here we are today with people locked out because the appetite is so major to actually fucking do something in this country about it. 6 million views on the launch video. 350,000 people signed up to join the campaign, cutting well beyond the boundaries that the left normally occupies. And a week ago, as I said, we didn't even exist. So this is a campaign which unashamedly isn't going to be about committees, it's going to be about action. It's not going to be about moaning, it's going to be about mobilising. And it's about delivering a mobilisation on which this country, on the scale of which this country hasn't seen for decades. We're going to put people on the streets. We're going to put people on the picket lines, and we are going to run the biggest online mobilisation in the history of the UK. And it's also about bringing people together, and we should when doing so, we should thank those who have played a part in the launch of the campaign. So our own union, the CWU, Tribune, have done a fantastic job. Big shout out to them. Zarah Sultana MP and Ian Byrne MP, massive, massive influence. The Right to Food campaign, Acorn, and of course the RMT. So before bringing on our first guest speaker, I want to ask you a few questions about the campaign. You know that we've got 5 aims. The first up then is a real pay rise. And I want to ask you, and you've got to make some noise here, are you ready to back every single strike that's going to take place in this country? And on the energy cap, do you back us when we say no, not stop October, roll back to April and nationalise the companies? And are you ashamed to live in a country where there's more food banks than there are McDonald's, and are you going to do something about it? And are you sick and tired of the rich taking over the housing market with luxury homes, Airbnb, and their tax dodging havens? And are you ready to say you are sick and tired of paying other people's mortgages? And last of all, are you sick and tired of tossers flying to the moon while working people can't put food on the table? Then you're in the right place. That's what the campaign's all about, yeah? So I want to introduce the first speaker, a little bit biased. A, he's my mate. B, he's my boss. Yeah. But I have to say, you know, the CWU, I think, do lead in a lot of areas. And one thing we're really, really proud of, yeah, and it shows today when we announced a national ballot result, one of the biggest in the trade union history in Royal Mail Group, by the way, the second in a month. And we've also got 40,000 telecom workers striking again, the first telecom strike in this country for 35 years. And we've got 2,000 postal workers. So in the end of August, we're going to have 170,000 workers in this country on strike demanding a proper pay rise. And the guy who leads our union, yeah, is a special guy, and he's a special leader, and he's a fine trade unionist. But one of the reasons he's a fine trade unionist is because this afternoon we did that, and tonight we're here doing this, because it's vital, yeah? And trade unions across the board need to recognise this. If you've got to win in the workplace, you've also got to win outside the workplace. Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise. Dave Ward.
Thanks very much. Well, unbelievable turnout, and thanks so much for the support that you've given this campaign. It's taken us all by surprise. I think it's also taken a lot of the political parties in this country by surprise, and long may that continue. Look, I do want to start by talking about this wave of industrial disputes that are taking place at the moment in the UK. And there's a real lesson that's coming through now. When people are talking about enough's enough, this campaign, we know that every single worker counts in the UK. It ain't just the workers that are in unions, it's all workers. We're standing up for all working class people. when people talk about racism, we're standing up against racists. We will harness the support of working class people across the UK, because there's one thing that I've learned in the last few weeks. Some of these results are absolutely stunning. 98.7% of people in Royal Mail who returned their ballot papers on a 72% ballot return that smashed the Tory threshold voted for strike action. It's happening right across the UK. And I believe that every group of workers would also vote for doing something about what's happening to their lives. And as Chris said earlier, one of the things the CWU's been thinking about for a long time, it's no good us anymore being good in terms of standing up for our members' pay terms and conditions. We have got to stand up for people outside of work, their families, and the whole of UK society that is being ripped off by, well, I mean, look, you know the Thatcherite policies that have existed for too long. I cannot believe when I sit and switch on the telly, I think that the Tory party has started their own race to the bottom because you couldn't get two more useless people standing to be the Prime Minister of this country. And people say, well, where's Labour? Well, I mean, it's up to Labour. This campaign goes on with or without Labour. That's what this is about. But never forget, there's some great Labour politicians and some good politicians who will be speaking to you tonight. They deserve our support because they are with us. And that will grow. That will grow. I tell you what this campaign's about. It's about building collectivism. It's about tapping into all of the good, decent people that are out there helping people day in, day out. I think people have realised it doesn't matter what the crisis is, whether it's the financial crisis of 2008, whether it's the pandemic, whether it's the current cost of living crisis, or whether it's the emergency climate crisis, we are in a position where working people always pay the price. And the fundamental challenge that we have, you can have the policies, we've got some great opening policies, we'll develop them, but the fundamental challenge we have, make no mistake about this, we have to address the structural imbalance of power and wealth that goes right through the world of work. It operates right across the world of work. It operates in how the economy is rigged against working people, and it operates in manufacturing all of the divisions that the Tories play on and all those people on the right in this country play on. We've got to do something about it, and this campaign will. Let me say to you as well, the big question is what happens next? Well, what happens next is that we have to turn these rallies into every town and city across the UK. Out everywhere in every town and city. So the first thing is get them rallies going, talk to your friends about them, get people behind this campaign. The second thing that we're going to do, we're going to start using the platform of these industrial disputes, using of ordinary working people saying enough's enough, to come out and start having in-conversation programs with some of the speakers that are here tonight. I want us to give a platform to all those decent people out there who want to see change. And the commitment that we need to do, we don't worry about the media ain't interested in what we're talking about. We'll make them interested because we're also going to be announcing forms of collective action that we can take across the UK, whether you're in a union or not. So look, a big plea from us to you. There's been lots of different campaigns over the years, and they end up going nowhere. And they end up going nowhere because people start looking inwardly. And they start saying, well, is this group part of it? Is that group part of it? Every group can be part of it. But I do want to say there's no point in running campaigns like this by big committees. Nothing ever gets done. You've got to go with this. You can add to the ideas that we're bringing forward. We need to get the message out there. We need to start talking about solutions to some of the big challenges that we face in this country. We want to give a platform to people who can talk about those solutions, not just us, but other organisations. I was absolutely enthralled by what was going on during the pandemic. I had people knocking at my own door, I think I'm getting on a bit now, saying, do I need any help? But what it was collectivism. It was back. And if we build collectivism, trade unions, community organisations, anybody who acts on the basis of collective strength will change things, we've got to give them confidence to achieve that. I know you're with us. I want you to stay with us, and I want you to get out there and build this campaign. We're also going to be making sure that you've got a role in it. Give us a few weeks to get that right, because it has taken us all by surprise. Just how many, I think it's 400,000 people now have signed up to the campaign. We'll be at 1 million by the end of this programme tonight, I think. So look, saying enough's enough is a start. Doing something about it is what we will focus on. We will be announcing at a certain point in the very near future. We'll get the press in, we'll do all of that, we'll get everybody together. We will be talking about forms of collective action. We will be talking about solutions. You need to support this campaign and get the message out to your family, your friends, and everybody in your workplaces. Thanks very much. We're going to deliver change. Make no mistake about that.
Well on, Dave, brilliant, absolutely fantastic. A little bit biased, as I said. Dave also there committed us to having 1 million people signed up by the end of tonight, so he's cut the ambition. I said the end of the month, he's gone for tonight, but that's what a boss does, isn't it? The other thing whilst we was there, we had a text from the Times newspaper who was saying the Royal Mail strike, the Tory party tonight are coming out saying that the planned postal strikes at the end of this month could potentially delay the results of the Tory party election. So please, tomorrow, give your postie a massive bloody thank you, eh? So our next speaker, as Dave said in his introduction, it's critical that we reach out as a movement. We are, as a trade union and the other trade unions involved in this, are trying to be as broad as possible. We realise we haven't got all the answers, and we need to go out there to individuals and organisations who are doing great stuff. And this man is doing some fantastic stuff. You know that housing is an absolute joke in this country, and what's going on is an absolute joke. Well, this guy's out there, he's built his own online profile. He is getting out there, he's exposing bad landlords, he's exposing bad housing associations, and he's doing a fantastic job, and he's here to speak to you about some of that tonight. So please welcome to the stage, Kwajo. Hello, 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 hello.
This is working, thank you.
You're going to all make me go red now.
God, so many people up there too. Hello, thank you all, thank you all, thank you all. I really, really appreciate it, and I'm so glad to be here today to talk to you all about housing. I just want to really, really quickly do this and ask, who here's a private renter? Just raise your hands really quickly. Okay, I can't see up here, but there's a lot of hands down here. And who rents for a social provider? Okay, okay. But housing is important to everyone, right? It is, and I mean, I knew just how bad things were a year and a half, well, I didn't know just how bad things were a year and a half ago, but for the last few years, for those of you that don't know me, my name's Kwajo Tweneboa, and I'm a social housing campaigner / pain in the arse for bad landlords. I've been going around for the last year disgracing bad landlords online for allowing people to live in absolutely horrific conditions whilst they're expected to pay rent on a monthly basis. and I've been doing it for the last year and a half, and I've been going around the country meeting tenants off of my own back for a very long time. Even now, I'm not paid to do it. The reason I do it is because I care. And it started with me living in poor housing. I was living amongst cockroaches, mice, damp, mold, asbestos. I had a kitchen which I couldn't use. My bathroom, I had to go and shower at the gym. My bathroom light was filled with water. And I had been complaining. I'd been complaining to my landlord, who is Clarion. I don't know if you guys know your social landlords, but Clarion Housing Association. And I had been complaining and complaining. They're the biggest in Europe, and they have a load of money, but they didn't want to come out and fix my issues. And it got to a point where I said enough was enough. And I decided then to turn to social media. I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know why it was. I didn't know whether it was because of my age, my background, but my dad got ill, unfortunately, in that house, and he was diagnosed with cancer, stage 1 cancer, whilst living amongst that disrepair, and he was receiving medical treatment. So he was actually being fed through his stomach. He was bedbound amongst cockroaches, mice, and we'd be complaining. We'd been telling them, asking to move, asking for them just to come out and fix it while still paying rent, but they didn't do it. And I didn't know what more I could do. And you know what? It got to the point where I was like, I'm just going to have to disgrace them. I'm going to have to turn to my friends on social media, which some of you are probably here today, and expect you guys to share it. And loads of people were outraged as a result of that. But what shocked me the most was the amount of people that turned around and said they were living in the same sorts of conditions. People like me, people across the country, people across London, saying they've complained and they've been ignored. Then I learned this is an issue which hasn't existed for the last year that I've been going into people's homes with a camera. It's been going on for the last 40 or 50 years. I've watched documentaries of people complaining about the same issues, being told you're damp as a result of you not opening your window, put your radiators on, stop running the shower, those sorts of excuses, and it's still happening today. So I'm very much behind the Enough is Enough campaign. I'm saying enough is enough for people living in poor housing. They need to get a grip of housing in this country, because it's not just poor housing. The private rented sector, we've seen in the last couple of days that in the last 3 months, bailiff evictions in the private sector has gone up by 39%. The cost of living crisis has only just started. Come winter, there's going to be more and more people evicted. Why? No fault of their own in a lot of cases, but because they just cannot afford. They're now having to choose between eating, heating, or paying their rent. And it's going to get to a point where people won't be able to afford it no more, and it's going to be more and more people. There'll be people in this room worried about that same situation, not being able to feed themselves, not being able to feed their kids. I've had tenants call me and say they have to borrow money off of their children now in order to pay for rent, in order to pay for food and gas and electric, because they just cannot afford it. At what point do we say enough is enough? Because ultimately, it's not the politicians that are living in their ivory towers and that can afford to buy houses or go on holiday or whatnot. It's not them that's going to be affected. It's going to be the working class individuals who are the absolute backbone of this country and this economy. Because without them, it would not have been able to run it in the way that it has. Yet they're having to suffer, and it's not just in housing. You're going to hear from everyone today, all of the speakers saying the same thing in different sectors. We are being let down. And listen, we all work, we all pay taxes. The question is, if we're not receiving the services we are asking for or deserve, the basic services as human beings, where are our taxes going? Who are they giving our money to? Where is it going? Because it's clearly not being reinvested back into us. But we're expected to pay it time and time again, whilst living in absolute squalor. And I think the reason I wanted to come here today was to warn everyone and warn politicians and MPs that I just don't think are doing enough, that if they don't take action now, things are going to get far worse, and it won't be in 2 years from now. It will be, well, come Christmas, things are going to get a lot worse because of the cost of living crisis, because people are having to pay for, well, their gas and electric is impossible now, but for fuel bills, it's absolutely impossible now. But come Christmas, it's going to get a whole lot worse, and then next year. But they don't seem to care. And I say to MPs who will be listening to this today, they need to care about their constituents, because ultimately I've gone out as individuals, and a lot of campaigners and a lot of the people, the guests here speaking today, and they've gone and done it off of their own back. I haven't been paid for the work that I've been doing over the last year and a half. I do it because I care. And they are in a position where they should be doing their job and have a seat in Parliament because they care. But unfortunately, what we're seeing is they don't care enough. If we can't rely on them, who can we rely on? So it's about collective action. It's about speaking up. I want to see more people and hear more people talking about housing and private sector, social sector. They're just as important, and demanding change. Because ultimately, me doing it by myself is not enough. Me going out there doing it by myself is not enough. And I do try my best and have tried my best, but collectively, we're unstoppable. And they may not tell you that, but you absolutely are. You absolutely are. There was something else that I wanted to say today, but it's completely slipped my mind, and I know if I don't say it, it's going to be kicking me as soon as I get off this stage. What was it? Give me a second. I'm so sorry. What was it now? Enough is enough. Thank you so much, guys, and do keep that conversation about housing going. That was it. I remembered. Look, the MPs don't want to listen now. They don't want. Look, they're all on holiday at the moment. We've got Zarah back here, who's actually come out because she's seen there's a crisis. She's back here because she cares. MPs are all up on their holidays. They're all having barbecues lying on beaches and whatnot. And it's, I mean, the political landscape at the moment is an absolute shambles. I would swear, but I know I'm currently being recorded. It's a shit show at the moment. It's an absolute shit show. And they are not doing enough. But you know what's going to happen? And it's not just going to be the Conservative Party. Labour, Keir Starmer, he's just been equally as bad. When I have raised housing with the Labour Party. I've tried to get in contact with Keir Starmer, heard absolutely nothing back. And it's not just me. I've spoken to other housing groups that say the same. Yet he's going to, in 2 years' time, claim that he represents the party that stands for the people. And he will send his MPs out onto estates, the same estates that they've been neglecting up until now, and they will beg you for your votes, whilst not putting in the work for the last 2 years. And they're going to make false promises like they always do. But then on the other hand, you've then got the Conservative Party during this peak housing crisis promising the right to buy, which is just absolutely impossible. Please, anyone here, don't believe them. It's a whole, I can tell you that. I know I'm 23 and I don't have a degree in housing. I can tell you it's not going to work. They're lying to you. They just want your vote. But they're going to come out and they're going to beg you. They're going to beg you for your vote. And you need to remember who turned around at your time of need and helped the people of this country, because ultimately it's them that should be the priority. So yes, enough is enough, and I'll leave you guys with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kwajo. Fantastic speech there, everybody. Let me tell you who represents the people, though. We represent the people. Trade unions, community organisations, and everyone in this room represents the people. We don't need, and this campaign is unashamedly not attached to any political party, because we believe this change that this country needs is going to be driven from the grassroots in every workplace and every community in the country. Our next speaker doesn't need much introduction, a bit of a legend, actually. A beloved children's author, former children's laureate, educational campaigner, NHS campaigner, UCU member at Goldsmiths, the one, the only, Michael Rosen. What an entrance, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Lovely to see you all here. Fantastic. And the news backstage, Marcus from Tribune has just told me, if you look at your phones, I know you haven't got your phones on, of course you haven't, you turn them all off. But if you look at your phones, Bernie Sanders has just tweeted solidarity with this evening and with the enough is enough. Bernie Sanders. Yes. Look at your phones. You'll also see a photograph of me and Mick Lynch, but you can ignore that. Well, I don't know. Really, it's what I'm talking about. Solidarity in action. That's what's going on. That's what we're doing now. And for somebody of my age who's seen trade union struggles come and go across the whole of my life, this is a dream. This is wonderful. We are seeing something incredibly special. People are fighting back against a massive attack. a massive attack on wages, living conditions, as we've heard, and we'll hear more this evening. This is the way to do it, solidarity in action. And my first reaction, I don't represent anyone. You heard I'm a member of a union that's been in a big struggle at Goldsmiths College, not far from here, down the line. Yeah, hooray! A big struggle because they had a bright idea. The college got into debt, so they got the bankers to take over. What a great idea. We don't need people who know how to teach. We don't need people who know anything. What we need is the people who screwed up the world economy to run our college. So they brought them in, and the first thing they did was threaten to sack hundreds, or certainly more than 100, and proceeded to do it. Actually, we fought back. The RMT came on our picket line. Many people came on our picket line. We fought back. You'll hear from Joe in just a moment, my union leader, and we have made a partial victory. What we've secured is no more compulsory redundancies. It's a partial victory, but it's a victory. Hooray! Whenever I see action like this, my first reaction is, in actual fact, to support. That's my immediate first reaction. I support. Where does this come from? Well, if you like, take me back to 1959. I'm 13 years old, and there's the bus strike. The London bus strike is on. And all my mates at school, I was a grammar school boy, and all my mates at school are moaning. And they're moaning about workers, they're moaning about bus drivers. And I came home and I was telling my mum this. And what was her first reaction? She said, you take some money and put it in the bucket on the picket line outside Harrowweald bus garage. Yes, that's what my mum did. So sure enough, little Michael, in his school uniform, turns up at Harrowweald bus garage, the 209 bus, if I remember rightly, crossed the road in front of all my mates who are scowling, look at the workers, they never work, that sort of stuff. That rings a bell. Wait a minute, was there somebody? I'll come back to that. And I walked across the road, and the guy said, what are you here for? And I said, I've come to put some money in the bucket. And he looked me up and down in my school uniform, and he said, all right, fair enough. And in went the money, and that was the day that I learned. That's what you do. When workers are out on strike, you support them. Thank you, it was my mum. But I got another message just as important that came from my dad. And my parents were born in 1919. My dad was mostly brought up by his mum and his grandfather, as you'd say in Yiddish, his Zayda. So his Zayda, who was born way back in the 1870s, as I remember, possibly before then. Okay, so we're talking about London's East End, you're talking about Whitechapel. And there he is, his first language is Yiddish, and he's been brought up in the tradition the Jewish Workers' League called the Bund in Poland. That's where he's come from. And he explains to my dad, and my dad explains to me what Zayda said. Joe Hyams, his name was. Joe said, well, what is a union? And he was taking, maybe he knew, maybe he didn't, an old Aesop fable. But he was saying it in Yiddish, and he was saying, what is a union? A union is a box of matches. Box of matches? A box of matches. You take one match, you break it. You take two matches, you break them. You take three matches, you break them. The whole box, you can't break. That's a union. So that message has come to me. That's the traditions that we're drawing on. We're not the first, but who knows, we might be the greatest. But we're not the first, we inherit these great traditions. And that comes from the 1880s, the 1890s, via my father's Zayda, his grandfather. And I'm actually standing here, alive and well, because of what working people did. Let's remember this. When Liz Truss said, and of course it's a speech that she gave some time ago, but when Liz Truss said that working people in this country aren't grafters, I think that's the word she used, aren't grafters. What a filthy insult. What a disgusting, filthy thing to say. Every now and then, they lift the lid. They reveal what it is they think, the contempt that they hold the very people who are holding up the world. That's the contempt they show to the people who are making all their money, all their wealth, all their power comes from the hands and minds and skills and experience of working people, and she turns around and says, they're not grafters. Well, I'll tell you what the grafters did to save my life. I was unconscious, I was in a coma for 40 days, and night after night and day after day, nurses and health workers and volunteers from other parts of the NHS, people, physiotherapists, occupational therapists, speech and language therapists, sat by my bed watching the screens, and when my blood pressure went down, they woke me up, they held my hand, they sang to me on their own, hour after hour, and under the extreme circumstances of that ward, where one nurse was supposed to be for one bed, there were 11 bays, there were 24 bays, there were nurses running from patient to patient, and nearly half of us were dying. And those nurses were putting up with those incredible conditions, those terrible conditions. Some of them are still suffering mentally and physically from it. And what do? They open their papers, Liz Truss, no grafters. So I support the nurses who are also taking action, or perhaps balloting for action. I support them, 100%. I will turn out for those nurses, whatever happens. Yes, I was honoured. It was a fantastic honour for me that the Royal College of Nurses asked me to give a talk to a Zoom talk to their Congress. It was a fantastic honour to be able to say some words to 500 or 600 nurses who were at that Congress and say thank you, to say what it was. And I'm going to finish with this, and this poem is for Liz Truss, to remind you, Liz, to remind you the kind of work that people do, that working people do. These are the hands that touch us first. Feel your head, find the pulse, and make your bed. These are the hands that tap your back, test the skin, hold your arm, wheel the bin, change the bulb, fix the drip, pour the jug, replace your hip. These are the hands that fill the bath, mop the floor, flick the switch, soothe the sore, burn the swabs, give us a jab, throw out sharps, design the lab. And these are the hands that stop the leaks, empty the pan, wipe the pipes, carry the can, clamp the veins, make the cast, log the dose, and touch us last. Remember that, Liz Truss. Touch us last. Birth to death. Thank you. Good night.
Whoa. Fantastic, Michael, fantastic. Just got to do a little mic check. So, that was inspirational, wasn't it? As is going to be our next speaker. We've got 4 speakers left for you tonight, including some fantastic ones. And just to let you all know, Mick Lynch is in the house. And he's ready for you. Right, okay. Our next speaker is somebody who represents people on the front line, our NHS workers, who do such a fantastic job, yeah? And our NHS workers, we saw today talking and saying maybe what was given to them can be given to the energy companies, and we'll pay them in claps instead of paying them in the bills, yeah? We also, this individual led and has been heavily involved in a fantastic strike in London, the Mighty Cleaners strike, who've done a fantastic job battling outsourcing, so big shout out to them. And she is the health rep at the People's Assembly. Please give a really, really warm welcome to Helen O'Connor.
Hi, everyone. Comrades, we're entering a period of crisis on a scale not seen for generations. All workers and even large sections of the middle classes will be affected by the cost of living crisis. Who will have to bear the cost? The low-paid workers, the disabled and unemployed, migrant workers and ethnic minorities, and of course, in harsh economic times, it will be women and children too. In GMB Union, we organise some of the lowest paid workers in this country. And they were struggling and suffering even before this cost of living crisis. Hard-won rights like the 8-hour day, the right to be paid on time for hours worked, the right to sick pay, job security, even the right to food are being rolled back to Victorian times for too many working class people. The level of poverty and suffering that is coming down the line for working class people will be like nothing we've seen for generations. The capitalist class, they don't care if our class become more and more impoverished. All they care about is their profits. Cuts and privatization are at the heart of so many union disputes, and we have to be honest with ourselves as a movement. How has so much poverty and inequality developed? Why do we have a gig economy, 0 hours contracts, the outsourcing of our public services? These developments have occurred because our movement did not organize a coordinated, united resistance in the 80s and ever since, when they privatized. When they privatized our utilities, stole our trade union rights, and drove down our wages. Many unions, unfortunately, stopped organizing members and prioritized partnership working instead. The lie was put about, even by some in our movement, that private is better than public. And any outsourced worker in this country will tell you, privatization is nothing more than the organized, legalized theft of workers' rights and our public services. We have been left with devastated public services and a super-exploited outsourced workforce. The question of public ownership is one of the most fundamental our movement faces today. We need to own and control what we create so that no household in this country faces the horror of a monthly gas and electric bill in excess of £400 a month next year. So the Labour Party should be making the demand for all of our utilities to be renationalised. If they're not prepared to do this, they're standing with big business over the people. If they're not prepared to stand in our picket lines, they are siding with big business over the people. The ruling class have fought tooth and claw to neuter the trade unions and deprive our class of the political representation we need. They are waging unremitting class war on us. And the one fundamental lesson we need to learn is this. We might all be in different unions, we might all be in different political parties, but unless we're prepared to stick together, to work together, to fight together in the common interests of our class, they will crush us. More and more people are saying enough is enough. The signs are all around us that our class is beginning to flex our muscles and assert ourselves on the industrial plane. But we cannot go on as we've previously, groups of workers fighting isolated battles, which allows the employers and government to pick us off one by one. Our striking GMB hospital workers in Mighty and elsewhere have taken great inspiration from the battles of the RMT and other workers on this platform. Linking up the disputes and struggles is a vital part of the work we have to do if we're to marshal the forces necessary to take on this government and defeat their attacks on us. We need to use the full coordinated power of our movement, linking up the trade union disputes and the social movements. We should develop common industrial demands and common political demands. And we need to listen to the voices of the workers as like those in Croydon University Hospital, who became properly organised, took on G4S and won a 24% pay rise. And the ability and willingness of workers to fight back will be a decisive factor in this period. We must get properly organised in workplaces to build power, but also in our communities. So what are we fighting for? Yes, it's about wages, terms and conditions. But this is also a struggle for the type of society we want to live in. The Tories are not shy about telling us how wonderful the profit system is, so we have to be clear on what we are demanding, and that is a socialist society. Where people are treated with dignity and respect. We have access to homes, food, education and healthcare, and once those needs have been satisfied, then relies our fullest potential as human beings. These are the principles upon which our movement was founded, and we should now reassert those principles loud and clear. Solidarity.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Give big noise for Helen. Okay, a couple of things to say to you. We've had a couple of messages of solidarity. One from Jeremy Corbyn MP. And Bernie Sanders has just tweeted, enough is enough. Right. Our next speaker, everyone, there's a new breed, a new group of trade union leaders in the country who are standing up for working people right across the UK. And our next speaker fits right into the middle of that category. It's a union that's balloting every single one of its members in every single university in the country, and are going to stage a massive strike action in the autumn because they're going to absolutely smash that ballot, and that union is the UCU. It's also a trade union, much like the others you're hearing from tonight, that does it in the workplace and outside the workplace. And I have to say a massive, massive credit, because I think this union leads the way in lots of fields, including its unadulterated support for the trans community. So massive, massive round of applause from there. So, welcome her on stage. Make some noise for the university workers, make some noise for the higher education and the further education workers. Joe Grady.
I know it's hot, but you all look great. So why are we here? We are here, guys, because we understand the problems we face. Those solutions don't lie in Westminster. And I also want to make another thing clear before we get started. We are not at a wake for the Labour Party, and we are not mourning the Labour Party. Because we are celebrating the renewed confidence of our movement. And to quote our good friend Mick Lynch, the working class are back. And I'm standing here, the General Secretary of UCU, as we've already heard, a union that relentlessly fights for education workers, for education and for students, but also the largest post-16 education union in the world. And I am delighted this week that we joined Enough is Enough, because I think we know better than anyone else, and I'm guessing you do too, whether we are looking at Royal Mail, the railways, energy companies, universities, colleges, online retailers, or even the companies that got the dodgy contracts from the government during COVID. There is no shortage of money for the things that we are demanding. There is no shortage of money for a real pay rise, to slash energy bills, to end food poverty, or to give us decent homes. And there is certainly no shortage of money to stop a climate catastrophe. It's maternity pay, it's all sorts of stuff, including not having to ask your employer if it's okay not to work on your day off, which our friends in Aslef have recently been chastised for. And in UCU, we know it recently because you may have seen that our workers at the Open University, we won a deal that transferred 4,800 of them onto permanent contracts. Representing the biggest anti-casualisation exercise we have ever seen. And I want that for everybody. And let's remind ourselves, it is collective action that got that deal. It's our intellect, it's our tenacity, it's our joy. It's the fact that we're better dressed than the rich and the Tories as well, guys, let's be honest. But one thing I want to say to you all, because obviously this is a great event, there's been some amazing speakers, but I want a commitment from everyone in this room that when you leave tonight, this is not your last engagement with this campaign. This is going to grow, but it needs you to grow it. This is not another campaign that is going to gather dust, but you are the people it relies on. We know that there are a number of battles ahead. We need an army of people because we know a government like this one has no answers for the working class. And when a Tory government has no answers for the working class, they turn to authoritarianism. And we know and we can see that now. We have two abysmal leadership candidates wedded just as much as each other to inequality, to misery, and to cruelty. They have no answers for spiralling energy costs. They couldn't care less about people who are living in homes, you know, riddled with damp and rotting. They have a vested interest, I would say, really, in never taxing the rich. And let's be clear, that includes their millionaire spouses. They're very comfortable with kids with hungry bellies at school. They're very comfortable with people dying, waiting hours for an ambulance. And they're very comfortable with diabetics dying in their homes with insulin in their fridge that they can't afford to chill. This is the state of this country, and when unions like mine, the RMT, and the CWU actually fight for a better pay, what they're also very comfortable is threatening us with more anti-trade union laws. So, things are bleak, but things always get better, and that's the start of this. We've got a Prime Minister, I think he's on his second holiday of his holiday, don't know if anyone's keeping up with it. We can't afford to take a rest. They attack us as a class, and we have to fight back united as a class. Some of you will be in unions, and that might mean engaging with your union. My union, woo! Yes, Queen. My union, we're about to launch a national ballot on pay and pensions. We might win that. I know you're all going to be with us on our pickets. But we're engaged in this campaign because this is about more than pay. We have members that have had to sleep on library floors and in tents, and that's despite them working and teaching at a university that charges students £9,000 a year. We have lecturers in further education colleges who have to call in sick because they can't afford transport to work and can't cook meals for longer than 20 minutes. And this is in institutions, especially in universities, where vice-chancellors are raking in sometimes £500,000 a year. So we know that even if we win in our industrial disputes, friends, that isn't going to solve the problem that energy is unaffordable, housing is insecure, or that the economy is rigged against us, or indeed that the planet is literally burning. So, I'm going to end on this. Our demands, clearly they are rooted for some of us in the workplace, but they are rooted outside of it as well. We have to organise in our workplace and organise outside of it, because we all deserve a long, happy, enjoyable life with dignity. And if you dare hear anyone telling you that that is too much, tell them enough is enough. Thank you.
Well then, Joe, fantastic. So we'll get 2 speakers left, everybody. It's bloody hot in here, isn't it? So our next speaker is a politician, and as I said, you know, we're not affiliating to any particular political party, but in amongst them, there are a few good eggs, and a couple in this room, actually. I saw Barry Gardner and Kate Osborne earlier have been on picket lines every single day. There's been strikes, by the way. So thank you to them. But this person, alongside them and others, has been on picket lines, has been on campaigns, and has been standing along trade unionists and working people her whole life. And she's also taken the fight into Westminster and is not as scared to take the fight to the top. I want you to give a massive, massive welcome to one of the founders of the Enough Enough campaign, MP for Coventry South, Zarah Sultana.
Well, hi everyone. Hi. My name's Zarah Sultana. It's lovely to meet you. I feel like this is stand-up comedy, but there's nothing fucking funny about what I'm about to talk about. Thank you. So I'm really proud to be part of this campaign. And if I'm honest with you, being here with Mick, who you're going to hear from later, I'm just you know, the warm-up act for Mick later. Just being here with Mick, with Dave, with Joe, and with all of you, I'm feeling hopeful for the first time about British politics, because let's be honest, it's a bit shit, isn't it? So thank you for being here. Thank you for taking time out of your day to be here, because we all know why we're here. We're here because it's so grim out there. We're here because we all know of stories like people in my constituency talking to me about the terror they feel at rocketing energy bills. That's the word that they use, terror. Parents speak about choosing between feeding... It's not me. Parents speak about choosing between feeding their kids or heating their homes, and it's not a slogan. It's a choice millions more people are going to be forced to make, to heat or to eat. So we're here today to say loud, to say collectively that enough is enough. We're not going to take this anymore, and we're going to fight back. We're here because this is the biggest assault on living standards on record. Energy bills, food prices, fuel soaring, wages falling far, far behind. We call it a cost of living crisis, but it's not just that. It's a crisis for our class, not theirs. For them, it's record corporate profits, it's a record number of billionaires, and it's record wealth for the top 10%. It's a cost of living crisis for the many, but it's a bonanza for the few. And if you listen to them, if you listen to Boris Johnson, or Liz Truss, or the governor of the Bank of England, or whoever else it is that they wheel out, they talk like this is all natural, it was inevitable, and they talk as if nothing can be done about the millions of people who are going to be plunged into poverty. Well, we know that's not true. We know that this isn't a crisis because there isn't enough wealth. It's a crisis because they've hoarded all the wealth. It's a choice. And they've chosen their greed, not our need. And we're saying enough is enough. And that's what trade unions have said. That's what Mick, Dave, and Joe have led the way with. And they're not just standing up for their members, they're standing up for every single person in this room and everyone outside of this venue as well. They're standing up for all of us. And this is an important lesson. This is a lesson that some people in my party need to understand. When workers go on strike, there's people in my party who need to understand when workers go on strike, it's not workers versus the public, it's not the tube worker versus the office worker versus the firefighter, it's workers versus bosses. Pick your side. It's people who don't have the same interests as all of you versus those who have the same interests as you. It's people who want decent pay. It's people who want their rights protected. It's people who want their public services funded versus those who want wages cut, rights shredded, and our public services gutted. So when the RMT goes on strike and when it wins, when the CWU win, when ASLEF win, when the UCU, the FBU, Unite, and every single trade union win, we all win and we are all stronger. So I can tell you today, and it will not surprise a single one of you, when workers go on strike, whether that's in London, Coventry, or Liverpool, as a Labour Member of Parliament, I stand in complete solidarity with them. And that shouldn't be controversial. I mean, the clue's in the bloody name. I'm a Labour Member of Parliament. And I'm not going to listen to anyone who dares to tell me any different. But as important as these strikes are, we know that this crisis can't be tackled by strikes alone. It's a crisis of food poverty and kids going hungry. It's a crisis of shoddy housing and rip-off landlords. It's a crisis of rocking bills and fossil fuel giants making billions. So this campaign is about uniting our fights. It's about bringing together trade unions and community groups, members of parliament and activists, and speaking out where our political class is conveniently silent. It's about all of us coming together and demanding our rights, a real pay rise, slashing bills, and bringing energy into public ownership. That's not controversial. The debate's been won. It's wildly popular. It's about ending food poverty and guaranteeing decent housing for all, and finally making the super rich pay their fair share. They cause a crisis, make them pay. None of these demands are radical. Every single one of them is wildly popular. Someone tell the leadership of the Labour Party. But no one in the mainstream is unfortunately championing them, and that's where we come in. It's got to change, and together we're going to change. It's solidarity.
Come on. Come on, more applause for Zarah. Make some noise if you agree with what she said about renationalising and public ownership of energy. What about the Royal Mail? What about the railways? What about Greggs? Here we go. So our last speaker, ladies and gentlemen, don't really need no introduction. What can I say about him? The first thing, though, make some racket if you are backing railway strikers tomorrow and forevermore. Make some racket if you have really, really, really enjoyed this guy handing the media their arses. Put simply, what this speaker represents and what's happening in communities and trade unions and workplaces across the country represents is hope. Take the roof off the place, everybody. General Secretary of the RMT, Mick Lynch.
Calm down. We haven't got long because we've got to do the meat raffle, and there's a bit of carpet bowls for the over 60s, and then there's a Keir Starmer tribute band on to round off the evening. So it's great to see you. I can't actually see anyone at the minute because I'm an old git who can't see anything going on. But it is great to be here, and it's great to be invited by the organisers to come and speak to you. And as you just heard, we're out on strike again tomorrow and Friday and Saturday, and I'm delighted that Unite bus workers are coming out, and I'm delighted that the CWU, and I'm delighted that mighty GMB workers down at St George's Hospital have been out. We've got to get everyone together. And there's one thing that we've got to be clear about. If you listen to the media, you'd think that railway workers at this minute are going round to hospitals, sneaking into nurses' lockers and taking tenors out of their pockets. And that somehow retail workers will get a windfall if railway workers lose this dispute. And it's nonsense. We know it's nonsense. We cannot be divided. This is what they call wedge politics. It's what we call division. This is a defensive dispute that we're running. Their tanks are on our lawn right now. Railway workers have good conditions in the main. They have reasonable salaries, some of them. We've got low-paid people as well. And we've got a set-up and a set of agreements that other people have lost over the last few decades. We are absolutely right to defend those things, but we're absolutely right. We're absolutely right to campaign with the rest of the working class and the rest of the trade union movement for the restoration of all these things for every worker in this country. And I tell you what they thought would happen. Shapps and all the others. Sunak was in government then, he was in the Treasury, going back 2 years. They wanted to talk to us then, Shapps, by Zoom as it happened. He never invited me round. Because he wanted us to help him with the COVID pandemic, to keep the railways running. And of course we did. Our bus members kept the buses running. Our ferry members kept the ferries running. We kept Britain moving. Our freight workers delivered the goods. And we took pay freezes. Now, we're not special. We're not special. It's just that we have an organisation that's able to fight back on these issues when so many workers have lost the ability to fight. And in fact, it's been so long that they had the ability to fight, they've forgotten that you can fight. They don't know how to organise. They don't know what to do in this crisis. So it's essential that we fight back now. They assumed that our members and all workers in this country would be cowed by COVID, that we wouldn't fight, that we wouldn't organise, that we wouldn't campaign. Well, they've been proven painfully wrong. Because what this is about is their ability to drive down wages, to drive down conditions. And why do they want to do that? It's not a technical exercise doing that. It's about driving up profits. That's what it's all about. And P&O has demonstrated to us just how cynical and ruthless these people will be when they see a chink in the armour. And maybe our union was too slow. Maybe we didn't respond quickly enough. Because what we thought we were doing on March the 18th, with a hangover in some cases, was going in to negotiate a change to new vehicles and new working practices and new technology. And what did they do on St. Patrick's Day? The St. Patrick's Day massacre? They sacked every single one of their staff employed in the UK. And that's the thing. If they scent weakness, either in the law or in our tactics and our response, they will pounce on us. So we have to be ready and willing to defend our people and our communities, to defend our jobs, our conditions, our pay and our pensions in all cases. And this rail dispute that we've got in front of us is about all of those things. It's an industrial dispute. It didn't start out as a political dispute. It's become political because of the mood of the country and the tactics of this government. But it's about jobs, fighting compulsory redundancies of thousands of our members in the railway industry. It's about maintaining safety standards on our railway. I worked in the railway. I was at the Paddington crash. It happened next door to my depot. We remember Potter's Bar, we remember Hatfield, we remember Southall, we remember all those tragic, they're called accidents, but they were cost-cutting exercises by the privatised engineering companies and Railtrack as it was. We want no return to that. They're cutting maintenance regimes by 50% in order to get rid of thousands of jobs. We can't have that. So we will fight for as long as it takes in the RMT. And we will fight the employers and anyone else that tries to do in our members. And we will also stand shoulder to shoulder with every other worker, every other union, every community organisation, every grassroots organisation, residents' organisations, whatever it is, to fight back against this austerity, to fight back against our class enemies. But let's be real. I'm aware of the profile that's created. I don't know how that's happened. It's a freak of nature as far as I'm concerned, if you look at the state of me. But it's no good having a profile if you don't get a deal. So for our members, we will be concentrating on getting a deal. And strike action is about giving us a strong hand at the negotiating table. Their plan on their behalf, the ruling class, was to turn the public against us, to get a quick victory, to crush the RMT as a high-profile union, and to crush other workers' resolve. Manifestly, given meetings such as this and the one I was at in Glasgow last night, where they had to lock the doors, that is backfiring in a big way, and resistance is breaking out all over this country. And we must make sure that that backfire hurts them. So we need a summer of solidarity, because all workers are feeling the same pressures, and they've all been subject to the same attacks, not just recently, for decades. Since Thatcher came in and sold off our council houses, when she ripped up the union laws that gave us balance in the workplace, when she got rid of manufacturing in this country and put us on the dole so we had to sell coffee to each other, paint each other's fingernails, and go to the barber. I got out of that one, I do it myself. That's the society they want us to be. But we've got to change that. We've got to change back to having the ability to make things for ourselves, to have a manufacturing base, a green manufacturing base, an energy-efficient manufacturing base, real jobs that give people skills and dignity and respect at work. We've had a decade of austerity since Cameron, and we're not going to take it anymore. And Helen from the People's Democracy and the GMB earlier talked about outsourcing. Outsourcing, subcontracting, casualisation, precarious work, 0 hours, whatever you want to call it. It's all part of the same hand that they've given us. It's the modern mode of British capitalism. And it's increasingly global. I was in Ireland at the weekend. They're suffering it there. It's happening in France. It's happening in Germany. It's happening in Spain. Everywhere. Outsourcing is the way to go. It's a cancer in our society. I'm telling you that now. It picks on the vulnerable. It picks on people who are new to the country. It tries to divide people on ethnic and religious bounds. They do it all of the time. And we must fight to bring the work back in-house. Make direct employment the norm in this country so that everybody gets the benefits of the agreements that the unions can make. And all of that means that we are in a class struggle. No doubt about it. And how do we know it and how do we identify it? Well, if they won't give you a pay rise, if they want to cut your pension to bits, they want you to shut your mouth and do what you're told at work. They don't want to give you sick pay. They don't want to give you a holiday pay above statutory minimums. And soon, don't think they won't change the statutory minimums going forward. Minima, I think the posh people say. They're going to change all of them, because once they've got us onto these minima, they'll say we need to increase profit again. And they'll say red tape is the enemy. We need to deregulate. And how do we know it's a class struggle? Because it's being done to us by Etonians. People from Winchester School, that's the alternative. It's being done to us. The one that's likely to win wasn't at Winchester or Eton, but she has descended from Westworld or wherever the robots come from to carry out the work, because the people from Winchester and Eton and Harrow can't be bothered anymore. So they've got a clone in there to do it, and she's going to win it, no doubt about it. And as soon as she gets in, she's going to ram through that police law to stop us fighting back, to stop us campaigning against poverty and war. All the things that we're opposed to in our movement will be illegal under Mrs. Patel going forward. And they want to shackle the unions even more than they are now. And why do they do it? They do it in the interests of their class. That's the way society works. And the quicker people in the mainstream political strands, the Labour Party and others, recognise that, the better we will be. They act in their class interest. It's time for us to act in our class interest. And the trouble with this class struggle isn't that it exists, it's that we're not winning it. We were winning it at one stage, after the war, public ownership, moving people forward, secondary education, third level education for working people, the Race Discrimination Act, Sexual Equality Acts, all of that stuff, the Health and Safety at Work Act itself, saved thousands and thousands of workers from early death and accidents at work. They're going to take all that away from us, and they've already started. We must fight back, and we must fight back now. And look at this election, this so-called election that's going on. They are taking another turn to the hard right, and I've got no embarrassment about calling these people hard right, militant, right-wing extremists. And it's being settled in the golf clubs, the Rotary clubs, the Freemasons halls. That's where this election's going to be decided, and us mugs won't get a say in it for another 2.5 years. We can't have that. These two, take your pick, whichever one you want. They're both short straws for the working class, I can tell you that. So we've got to get ready. Need our arguments. We need our campaigns. We need our people. We need to fight these anti-trade union laws. We need to fight the police bill. We need to fight every curtailment of human rights and our people's freedom. Our response is we must campaign and fight. We cannot be passive. We cannot be passive in the face of such attacks, such widespread poverty in our midst. You're only going to walk around this town at Clapham Junction tonight, at Euston, where I came from. Our fellow workers are lying about in the road. Other workers have to go to food banks. Other workers now can't afford to give to food banks. This is a national disgrace, and we have to fight back and end it. We're facing a degradation of our society and our standards, our humanity and our dignity, and we've got a polar divide between the wealth and power in our society. And we've got to put back on the agenda, and Starmer's got to start saying this word: redistribution. That's what we need. Redistribution of wealth and power in this society is our main demand. So we're going to need campaigns of industrial action where everybody supports the strikers. If you're not in a strike, you're not in a dispute right now, make sure you support those strikers. It's a tough road in this society to be on strike. It can be isolating. We can't have that anymore. Surround your strikers with love and solidarity. We need community campaigns to save our services, to save the fabric of our communities in working class areas. We need mass collective action as well as industrial action. And at the heart of that has got to be that demand on all politicians for redistribution and a fair deal for everyone in this country. At the bottom of that is public ownership. Public ownership is good in and of itself. I was on a BBC programme last week when this was launched. They asked the front bench spokesman, I think she's the chief whip or something, I don't know what they call themselves in there, Thangham Debonair, will you consider public ownership? I don't even think she knew what it meant. She certainly couldn't come up with an answer. She couldn't even come up with a fudge. She couldn't say, well, we'll consider it, but we don't know if we can afford it. They've got no idea what it means. If we had public ownership now, some of you may not know, you all look a bit younger than me, BP, British Gas, belong to us, the people of this country. And if we were facing this crisis in energy bills and utility bills, don't forget the water boards were all ours as well, we would just cap the wholesale price of energy tomorrow morning and people could pay those bills and there would be no dividends and profit. 50% of our energy comes from the North Sea. 40% of it is coming, that's our carbon energy. 40% of our energy is coming from the wind. Surely we can own the wind and the rain in this country and what it can give us as a bounty. Starmer seems to have no idea that that might appeal to working class people. No idea that it's a good value in and of itself. It's what we founded the Labour Party on. My union, the predecessor, the Society of Railway Servants, founded that organisation, and now we're no longer able to affiliate it to it because it has no content and no identity with working people in this country anymore. So the unions must lead. We can't wait for the politicians. I don't care who they are. I was in Scotland last night. I don't care if it's the SNP in power. I don't care if it's Plaid Cymru. I don't care if Labour win the election. I hope they do win the election. Anything is better than what we got now, and it's in our interest that they do win. But when they do get in, they need to face pressure from working people every day. So the unions must lead, and we've got to get out into the communities, the former Red Wall, plant the union flag in those communities. We've got to assist people, teach them to campaign, show them how to organise, fund what they're doing where we can. Make them take the lead, enable them, motivate them, get them out on the streets. Join those campaigns up, national, local, regional or whatever. Whether it's Enough is Enough, whether it's the People's Assembly, whether it's other campaigns that are going to come out of the struggles. It's not just one flower in the garden. We need the entire garden to be flourishing with working class activity, working class campaigns. And our job as activists as trade unionists is to lift up our people's hearts. We've got to lift them up, fill them full of hope, give them a voice, get them on their feet, get them out on the streets. And our message must be this, straightforward. The working class is back. We're not just back as an idea, we're back as a movement, we're back as an energy. You've heard it before. Those times are over. We refuse to be meek. We refuse to be humble. We refuse to wait for politicians, policy writers, and we refuse to be poor anymore. We refuse for everyone to be poor. So let the message ring out from here tonight and all the other meetings that we'll be doing. We are going to organise every sector of our class. If you're not in a union here tonight, join one and join a campaign. If you are in a union, in your workplace, get everybody else in the union and join a campaign. Move the workers into union membership, the members into activity and campaigning, and convert that into a wave of solidarity and industrial action across Britain. Get to your branch meeting. If you're in a union, we are a democratic movement. Kick the officers in your union into activity. If they won't take part in activity, if they won't campaign on our agenda, make some moves to change that union. Let's start the ball rolling. Let's take these campaigns on. Let's take these disputes on. We don't care what the media say. They're always against us. We don't care what the pundits, the wiseacres, the commentators say. They're always against us. We don't care particularly what the politicians think. I'm sick of waiting. I've been waiting for decades for somebody to come along and do the job on behalf of working people. I don't think it's going to happen. Our message is that unity and solidarity are wonderful, and we're going to create it across. If we're united, if we campaign together, if we fight together, we are an unstoppable force in this society. So thanks for coming out tonight. Victory to the bus workers in London, victory to the postal workers, victory to the RMT, and victory to the working class. Thanks for listening.
OMT, 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 OMT.
Right. What a way to end. Fantastic from Mick. We knew that was going to be great, didn't we? A couple of things before you all slide off, if that's okay, into the night. To mention the RMT's Fighting Fund. Please go on their fantastic Twitter page. Donate to the Fighting Fund. They need every penny they can get. Also, join the picket lines tomorrow. It's important. At the back while you're leaving, we've got some stores from our colleagues at Acorn and other organisations. Please give it a visit. We want to say, just in summing up to everybody, thank you for tonight. I think it's been uplifting. I hope you found it uplifting and inspirational too. We need you to do some things though. We need you to sign up to the campaign. We need you to join your local groups. There's going to be leaflets which are going to dictate how you can do that on the enough.co.uk page in the next couple of days. So please get out there. And in closing, we would say this. We want you to feel, and we want you to spread, and we want you to not be afraid of hope. I can tell you, that as a Plymouth Argyle fan, hope is a fucking killer. But it's also one of the most beautiful things in the world. So let's get out there, get on the picket lines, get on the streets, not a step backwards. Comrades, enough is a fucking enough.
1, 2. 1, 2. All right, clapping glands. Can I just say thank you to Enough is Enough for coming and hosting it here tonight. Thank you all for coming and your patience in getting in, and just a little bit of health and safety on the way out. Go really slowly. There's a lot of you who have only got 3 doors. If you've got something in the cloakroom, bear with us. It's going to take us a while.